Welcome, everyone, to the podcast Spark the Genius. I'm your host, Spark the Genius, and I'm here to spark the genius within you. And I was just starting to have a little conversation with today's guest, Diana Winkler, and I was like, whoa, we should start recording this because this is good. We were talking about using time. All right, today is Saturday, April 16th. It's 1:21 p.m. my time. But, Diana, I think for you it's like 10:21 a.m. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. Arizona has their own time zone.
Wait, their own? It's not even like California time zone?
Well, it's weird. Like right now we match California, but later in the year we will match Colorado. So it's really hard to
Does it
deal
change,
with.
like daylight savings?
Yes.
Like what? How?
It changes during daylight savings, and so the only other state that does that is I think Indiana. Parts of Indiana does that,
But
where
we
it has its own time zone.
its own time zone like that. How much like ego do you have to go? You know what? I have my own time zone. The world has to. Maybe I should start having a Spark the Genius time zone, and they'll be like, "What time? What time do you want to meet?" I'm like, "Well, my time. It's it's 3:12 a.m. right now, or I don't know, whatever, just some arbitrary time. That's it. From now on, there's people say what time zone. I'm like, I'm STG, Spark the Genius time, and they'll be like, "When is that?" I'm like, it changes every day. It's hard to tell you. You'll just have to message me in the morning and see what time it is, depending on how much sleep I got. Well, first of all, I've decided what I want to do with my podcast is start off by acknowledging the audience and saying thank you for listening, because I know your time is valuable. And I'm trying to come up with a name for my tribe. I was thinking maybe calling the listeners Sparklers, because they're like little sparklers. Or they could be Sparks, but I'm Sparks. It doesn't really work. Or Sparkies, but then you sound like a puppy. So Sparklers for now. Or Geniuses. Hello, Geniuses. Because I've noticed
I like that.
You like the Geniuses?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, the genius part is kind of just something I wanted to be called Spark, like Pink or Sting, like just a one-syllable name and something visual. So I liked Spark, but I could never own spark.com or anything. So I added the Genius so that I could have the domain, but also it sort of summed up, because I didn't want to be like there's Tyler, the creator, and I'm like, oh, I like that, but he creates, but I create, but I'm also everything. But I thought it could all boil down to, you can be a genius at anything you do, kind of thing. So, and it's also, that's the way I help people. I spark the genius within you, blah, blah, blah. But even though that's the minor part of the name, maybe that's, hey, geniuses, like baby geniuses, like that movie Baby Geniuses. All right, so Diana votes for geniuses, but you guys can vote. I'm trying to figure out how to communicate with my community. I'm starting a Facebook group, and the idea will be that, after the podcast, everybody can meet in the group and we can discuss maybe once a week, or once a day. I don't know what. Talk about what we learned today. This is all just stuff I'm thinking of doing, and maybe I'll do it. So we'll see what the group thinks, what they want to be called. Like Lady Gaga calls her people the Little Monsters for some reason. I don't know if she has a Facebook group and she communes with them. But whatever. So yeah. So I want to say hello to my group, and then I was also thinking I would tell the audience, here's the plan. Like, if you're going to do what I do, you'll get up every morning, go for a walk or a jog for an hour, and you'll listen to a podcast. And maybe that's what you listen to. You listen to this show every morning for an hour, or while you go to sleep. Those are the two times I listen to podcasts. And then so that's part of the community that I'm building. And so today, and another thing I thought of just before we started this podcast was, I should let the guest introduce themselves, because who knows themselves better than themselves, right? So I could be like, Diana Winkler, who are you? Tell us about yourself.
Hey guys, I'm a singer-songwriter, I'm an abuse advocate, and I am host of the Wounds of the Faithful podcast. And so that's the short story.
No, I like that. That's your elevator pitch. And for those of you who are watching on the video platform of your choice, I was going to say on YouTube, but I don't even want to. Why am I selling YouTube? I don't own YouTube. YouTube doesn't own, and it's not helping me. So it's a video.
Exactly.
Maybe you're watching on YouTube, but there could be other platforms out there. So if those of you watching, you can see she's got a sign behind her. Those of you who are listening, I will describe it. So let's see. It doesn't fit all in the frame, but it's, I guess, DSW Ministries and Diana Winkler, and then she's got dswministries.org. and that says public speaker, voice teacher, and what's the word, actor, or what's the TOR for mending the soul?
A facilitator.
Oh, facilitator for mending the soul. So you were saying you're an abuse advocate. I'm going to assume that doesn't mean you approve of abuse and you advocate for it.
Oh no, quite the opposite. As I'm advocating for those that are abused.
Right.
And
All right.
so Mending the Soul is like a small group to talk about all kinds of abuse and process that abuse and heal from it.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds. I mean, I'll assume you probably went through some kind of abuse. And
Yes, I'm a survivor myself.
Okay, yeah. So what Tony Robbins does that I've noticed in his documentaries and his videos, he'll always say, what's your issue? And it's like, well, I was abused. It's like, okay, well, how are we going to turn that around, make it a positive? Now you're going to help people who are abused or survive,
Yes,
whatever it
exactly.
is. And that's how you turn. Dean Graziosi says, turn your mess into your message. So that's what you've done. That's very cool. So I guess we could start with that. It's always hard to know when people are so multi-talented and stuff where to go. So you say it's a group. Like, how does this group meet?
Well, before the pandemic, of course, we talk about everything pre-pandemic and post-pandemic.
Yeah.
I was teaching these groups in the church that I belong to, and then after the pandemic, we all switched to Zoom, and so I can help anybody in the world with the Zoom, of course, across multiple time zones.
Yes. Yeah. Even my time zone. Yeah.
Yes. So we have people all over the world meeting in groups of 4 with myself and my co-facilitator, Kelly.
Well, that's cool. And so originally it was, and this is like for people to overcome abuse. So like you would sort of advertise it in your city and people would come, and now you sort of advertise it online and people can be like, oh, they can come from anywhere.
Absolutely.
Wow. It's funny because I think about before the pandemic a couple of years ago, I mean, the internet existed, but I don't know if it ever occurred to me to take a class online or to run workshops on Zoom. I don't think I'd heard of Zoom. Like, and again, it was all possible probably, but it was always just like, oh, is there a stand-up class across the street from me? Where can I do it? And now it's like, of course, I run groups online or I interview people on my podcast online. Or actually, I did that a few times before, but no, actually, I don't think I did. Maybe I did on Skype or something. But the technology, I don't know. It feels like we've advanced since then, and it's just assumed. It's almost the default now. We'll assume
we've
it's
pivoted. Our whole lives have pivoted.
Yeah, I like the pivot though, because it gives us a chance to. I mean, you're in Arizona, and we're just talking, and it's not even a question like, oh, what do you mean you're going to interview me online for a podcast? Because that's even in the TV shows, like when everybody had started interviewing people remotely, Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon, they're interviewing people over Skype, and I'm like, oh, well, that's what I wanted to do. So now they're doing it, so it's totally legit. You don't have to come to my theater. So that's cool. So, and I mean, how long ago did you start doing your abuse groups? Like, did you decide, here's what I'm going to do? I'm going to do these groups. Like, how did that all come about?
The Mending the Soul groups, I started doing them about 5 years ago when I came out of my abusive situation. There really wasn't any resources in 2008 for somebody like me. And I tried to start my own kind of a group, like a Bible study or, a support group on my own, but just the doors kept closing, and I thought, well, I know that I was meant to help other people who have been abused. And it wasn't until I joined the church that I'm a part of right now with my now husband Brian that I asked the pastor's wife, hey, can I start like a Bible study or something for abuse survivors? And she's like, well, we already have a ministry for that. I'd like to invite you to come in and join the group. And so I took the group myself as a participant, and I thought, oh well, I'm already healed from my abuse. This was a long time ago, but I realized there were things that the corners were not swept out. There were rooms that I had not gone into.
Hmm.
And I was really impressed with the group. They talk about every kind of abuse. And I didn't know that I was even being abused when I was in the situation, and discovered all the different kinds of abuses, emotional, physical, spiritual. Everybody knows about physical abuse and sexual abuse, but emotional abuse is very valid and very damaging. You learn about gaslighting and narcissism, and you know what does an abuser look like?
Right.
It's not, people think an abuser is some ugly person or some guy hiding in the bushes waiting to pounce on you. It's usually people that you know,
Hmm.
people that you trust, people that you may love who are your abuser. Um, my abuser was very prominent in society, and he looked really great on the outside in public, but behind closed doors, it was a whole different story. And Mending the Soul was started by a ethics and theology professor here in Arizona, Stephen Tracy, and then his wife is a trauma counselor. And so they had some abuse from people that they knew that were missionaries overseas, and they had no resources over there, and so that inspired them to start this curriculum that lay people could go through and do these groups and help people to heal from any kind of abuse. Because not everybody in the world can afford private counseling services. It's very expensive,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I've even looked into therapy and stuff, and you're like, and when you're already stressed, you're like, can I afford, like, do I need the extra stress of paying for this kind of thing? Uh, but
Yeah,
yeah, so that's,
you can't always afford. The rest of the world cannot afford what the United States and Canada can afford,
hmm,
but they need help. And it doesn't mean that Mending the Soul or groups similar to that replaces counseling, because if you have mental health issues, I'm not a mental health facilitator. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a pharmacist. I can't do those things, but I can walk with you. I
yeah,
can I can cry with you. I can understand what you went through. I can just sit and listen to your story. I
and
can
that's,
say, I believe you. I'm
yeah,
here for you if you need me.
and I think
I can do
that's,
those things.
those are, yeah, those are very important, and I think, um, my mom recently sent me an article. I was talking about, like, am I a life coach and stuff, and there was an article about, like, life coaches. I guess it was an expose on TV about, a lot of them are scams or whatever, like, or the reporter would secretly contact the life coach. The life coach would be like, no, no, you don't need therapy, stick with me or whatever. So it's important to distinguish between the two. Like, if you need, like, a licensed doctor or a therapist, I
Right.
mean, that's one thing. And in addition, or maybe instead, or whatever, like, a support group can be useful. Like, a lot of times there's people starting groups that are just for people in similar situations to talk to each other and feel heard and feel seen, and that's definitely valid as well, and that's what I hope to create and like to be a part of, just to feel less alone and have people to talk to. And um, so I mean, that's a great thing that exists for sure. uh, so I'm
Yeah,
glad
I'm
you're,
definitely trained. We
yeah.
go through a training process. I went on in person to a weekend training, and then I did some additional online trainings. And Mending the Soul, the folks that are in charge, they're constantly offering additional trainings for the facilitators.
Mm.
It's not that we don't have any training, we do.
No,
It's
no, no,
just
for
we're
sure.
not doctors.
Yeah, yeah. Just know
Um,
what you're getting into. Yeah, like, what people are qualified to
right?
do,
How
and what, yeah.
how how to how to facilitate the group. There are certain rules in the group that everyone has to follow. One, it's you do not repeat anything that goes on in the group. Okay,
Yep.
everything it has to be confidential. You're not going to go and spill your guts if you think so and so is going to go blab your junk to everybody else, right?
Hmm. Exactly.
you
No,
know,
that I mean that's yes.
you don't try and fix somebody. You don't shove Bible verses down their throat. You don't diminish what their abuse is. Those kind of things. There's safe ways, and then there's not so safe ways. So we definitely get some extra training in that.
So
And some
mending the
people have told me that the Mending the Soul groups have done more for their healing than going to a professional counselor, which is pretty weird.
It's interesting because I've been thinking about that lately. Like, would I learn from a life coach or Tony Robbins, who's not a doctor? Like, even when I was in university, I remember psych profs going, "Oh, Tony Robbins, he's not a doctor. None of this is scientific." But I don't know. I'm becoming disillusioned the more I read about universities and trained people. Like, there is training, but especially with psychology and stuff, I don't know necessarily that there's only one answer. Like, you have to go to a licensed doctor therapist, and another person just offering to listen to you, they're not valid or whatever. I think there's valid things it depends on the medicine, I guess. Like, I would want, if I needed heart surgery, I would definitely want a qualified heart surgeon. And I'm sure I'm sure coaches that are taking advantage of people and all that kind of thing. But I think, I don't know, just the in my old age and wisdom, I start to think, you know what, maybe not everything has to be necessarily like, well, unless you have a PhD in this, you don't know anything about it. Like, there's different ways to learn, different ways to help people. And if something makes you feel good, then that's valid. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I've got to sign up for this online therapist, otherwise I can't feel any better about myself, or I can't feel any support. So that,
Well, I'd like to say that there are many different ways of healing. Not everybody heals the same way, and some people, they don't do well in group therapy.
right?
They don't like talking. They don't like talk therapy. There are other ways to heal, like with animals, taking care of animals, or
Mm,
nature, or, some people like music
yeah,
or art. There's many different forms of art that are very healing,
yeah.
that
And there's
create
art therapists,
expression.
there's music therapists,
Hmm.
or whether you use one or whether you just take an art class, or and I know even just going for a walk every day makes me feel better. Once I get out of the house and I'm like in the sunshine, I'm like, okay, I feel better. And for sure, if I stop and pet a dog, I feel better. So all of these things,
Exactly.
you can learn yourself. Like, do I feel better when I'm walking a dog? Then do it. Like, you don't need a doctor's prescription to walk a dog or to go outside. And then it also makes me realize, you know what? We're all kind of on our own in this world. There's no doctor that's going to sit there. Like, what people say, like, oh, my doctor's going to get mad at me because I've been not eating well or whatever. Your doctor really doesn't. I mean, maybe they care, but it's on you. Like, it's not like it's either you care and you do it, or they'll be like, all right, well, you're gonna have a heart attack. That's it. Like, it's not about,
Hmm.
like, I make the joke too. It's like, uh-oh, if I spent money, my accountant will be mad. Your accountant does not care. Nobody cares. Maybe if you've got a spouse, they care, but even they probably don't care. Like, everybody's got their own problems. So you got to take control of your stuff and feel like, okay, do you like walking dogs? Then do it. Don't wait for your doctor to say go pet a dog or whatever.
That's
Um,
right. You're in charge of your own destiny and your own life, and take the
but
step.
but we are social creatures, and I feel best when I'm talking to people or part of a community. So if that makes you feel better, seek it out. If being part of the Spark the Geniuses makes you feel better, then that's legit. Join the Facebook group,
Well, yeah.
talk to whatever. Like, was mending the soul. So you're saying somebody in your church in your town started that, or is it like an international group? Or
Oh, it's international, yeah. Stephen Tracy. In fact, I was just at a Mending the Soul luncheon where they report on all the things that they're doing all over the world. Like, they'll take groups to places like the Congo, where it's the rape capital of the world, and war and Ebola and, guerrilla warfare. And recently they had volcanoes, and they don't have any mental health services. They don't have doctors. Some of these villages, they don't have anything. And what they'll do is they'll go in to these villages. They find the leaders in the villages, whether it's a pastor or a mayor or you know, witch doctor, whoever, any kind of a leader. Sometimes they're doctors, some
Papa Smurf, whatever.
yeah, Papa Smurf, whatever the leadership is in that community. Mending the Soul takes a team down there and trains them. They're there for like a couple weeks. They train them in how to lead these groups.
So is this kind of like a missionary thing? I guess it's like people like convert to. Is what religion would you say this
It's
is?
not. It's not a evangelistic type of a group. It is faith based, Christian based, but Mending the Soul is primarily trying to get people to heal from whatever trauma or abuse it is. It's not, I want to force you to convert to whatever.
Yeah, and there's different. Like I'm Jewish, so I don't. So Christianity, like there's different kinds, right? I guess.
Yes,
Like,
there are different denominations, and so like I've had like Mormons in my groups, and or people with different faiths, like Jewish community. We talk about spiritual things. We talk about, okay, whatever faith you have is going to be damaged by abuse. So we're going to talk about spiritual things. Because for me as a Christian, when I went through my abuse, it was like, well, maybe God doesn't care about me.
mm-hmm.
I'm not going to pray anymore. I'm not going to go and read the scriptures anymore. I'm not going to go to church anymore because, well, God's an all-powerful God, and maybe he doesn't care about me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to abandon my faith, that kind of a thing. Now, I didn't abandon my faith. I questioned,
Yep.
why did this happen to me? And some people have to reconstruct, well, okay, God didn't cause the abuse. It was caused by human beings who are selfish and evil, and they're the ones that abused you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, anybody can join the Mending the Soul groups. A lot of people in Africa are Muslim, but we talk about those faith and spiritual things.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of healing. You are a spiritual person. You are a soul. You have a body. So you have to deal with not only the physical or the emotional, but also the spiritual, because we are spiritual beings, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so, your website is DSW Ministries, I guess Diana, middle
Correct.
name Winkler. And then, so, you go to your church, but you've also got your own ministries, or what is your, what's your business?
Well, I'm a musician.
Yeah.
So one of the tools that I use for healing is music.
Yeah.
And music was a huge part of my healing journey, because even like if I was in the middle of my abuse, or let's say I wasn't talking to God, I'm mad at you.
Yeah.
I'm on the couch, but I haven't moved out yet, kind of a thing. Music was still there for me, because I've been a musician since I was in kindergarten. Music was still there. I could still be healed by the power of music.
Yeah.
God could still speak to me through the music, even though, okay, I'm not talking to you right now. I'm not going to church, or I'm not reading the scriptures or anything like that.
Yeah.
I still had music. And so that is a huge part of my ministry is I write music. My husband's a musician, Brian, and behind the camera here is his custom drum set and all the other instruments we have in here. I've got...
Yeah, when you told me you're a songwriter, I'm like, oh, so I made sure my guitar was beside me today, and I haven't tuned it. And I don't know. My sister tells me that you can tune things with an iPhone app now. I'm like, I didn't know that. Like I thought I have to get new batteries for my old tuner I bought 30 years ago. But oh yeah, see, it's out of tune. But I love music, and I haven't played songs in a long time. But that's one thing I want to do. It makes me feel better. I'm going to start maybe doing a song for TikTok every day or something, and that kind of thing. So yeah, as a Jew, like I don't know about ministry. So like, can I just, if I started like, say, could I start the Spark the Genius ministry, and that would just sort of mean like it's my support group for people? Like, is that what a ministry is?
Yeah, ministry means that you are investing into somebody else and you're coming alongside of them and helping them rather than, okay, my goal is to be rich and make money. As like in a business sense, a ministry is more, my focus is to help those people, my target folks.
Maybe
So yes, you could.
Maybe
Like
this podcast could now be called like How to Start a Ministry, How to Minister to Others.
Right, exactly. So yeah, you certainly can start your own ministry, and you pick who you want to help. And
All right, Spark the Genius Ministries. It is officially founded, and anybody, I've been saying, like, I've been trying to boil it down to like, what is this about? What am I doing? It's like I'm trying to help people become happy, healthy, and wealthy, because I feel like those are the three kind of pillars. And it starts with being happy. Like, if you're happy, that's everything, really. Like, you don't even need the others, but you do need to be healthy, because if you're not healthy, then nothing else matters also. And then wealthy is just fun.
yeah.
If you're happy and healthy, hey, why not be rich? Because then you can go buy Twitter or whatever Elon Musk is up to. I was thinking about that today. Like, somebody tweeted sort of as a joke, like, Elon Musk has $300 billion. He could give $1 billion to every American, but instead he's buying Twitter. And he's like, wait, what? That math isn't right. And he's like, and then his second tweet is, I can't believe people think I was being serious, whatever. But then I started thinking about it. 300 billion means, let me think, a billion is 1,000 million. Anyway, so even 300,000, $300,000 would be a lot of dollars if I had $300,000. Or if I had $1 million, that would be a lot of money. But he's got 3,000 million. Anyways, it's a lot of money. It's hard to wrap your head around. But I would like that and see what happens. I was watching a little YouTube video yesterday, and the guy was, it was like a panel on Fox News, and one of the guys was saying, you know what, this is just a good lesson for young kids. It's like, you get successful, you've got FU money. You can decide, hey, I'm not happy with Twitter, I'm going to buy it. Like, if you can get that kind of money, it gives you power to be like, I don't need to take your crap. So please donate all the money you have to Spark the Genius Ministries, and I promise to use it for only good, as defined by me. Were you working a job before you became public speaker, voice teacher, facilitator?
Oh, I still work a day job. I've had this ministry for 11 years, and my accountant says, I've never made a profit.
See,
I'm not a very good marketer, okay? I'm not very good at social media and marketing myself, so that's probably my downfall. But yes,
you're on a podcast right now. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm on a lot of podcasts. I have my own podcast, and but the whole algorithm thing.
It's
you
tough.
know about that. It's tough.
But it's also, it's always changing. So I feel like you can't beat yourself up. Like, why didn't I get big on social media 20 years ago? Well, there was no social media 20 years ago. Well, you could have been big on Vine 5 years ago, and now it doesn't exist. So you can always shift it up today. Like, today, just on my Facebook feed, this woman showed up with some funny, or not a funny, but it was a video saying, I asked my husband why he never took cute, candid photos of me, but then, and then he showed me, and then it's like all these candid photos he took of her, and it's sad music, and it's like, oh my God, he was taking photos of her all along. But I was like, oh, I'll follow her, let me check her out, and it looked like she's got a profile, but her profile is 55,000 followers, and so I messaged her, and I was like, hey, sent her a little video saying, so you have a profile? Because I'm always trying to figure out, do I use my profile or my page? And she sent me back, I haven't read the whole thing, but it was something like, yeah, I was using a page, but now you can, on your profile, you can, Facebook lets you become a digital creator where you can make money from your reels, even from your personal profile. And I don't think we have that in Canada yet, but that's a whole new thing, right? So this whole thing where it's page or profile, which I've been Googling for 10 years, it's like it might be moot now because it's always changing. So just, decide what's big today. Reels are big now. They love reels. So I was thinking for Instagram, I'll just produce reels. Like, forget wasting time posting photos or little videos. Like, here, everything's a 10-second reel. If that's what they want to promote, if that's what people like watching, then do that. And then but I also want to turn this podcast into a reel. Maybe this will be the reel. This will be my 1 minute reel right now. It's the clip from the podcast. And today's tip on the podcast is, I don't know, how to get big on Instagram or how to turn your podcast clip into a reel. I don't know.
I can't keep up, to be honest with you, on
No.
the trends.
But then
I just show up,
just
I
show
just
up.
show up and do it.
Just do it. And that's what I was thinking too. It's like, you know what? It's too much to worry about everything. You can just, whatever you're doing, you're doing. If you have a podcast, then that's your thing. If you like posting on Instagram, then that's your thing. You don't also need to be on Twitch and TikTok and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Pinterest. It's like just work on, one thing, and the people will find you, and it's fine. So don't stress about it. That's another lesson today. If anybody's taking notes, so we can say these are the takeaways from the podcast in the description below.
I do have a day job because there's no way I could pay my bills.
Right, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Be creative, and I don't want to, just compromise on my art to make money, and it's not true to myself. You know what I'm saying?
I talked about this in my last episode, none of which I've posted for the past few months, but I'll get on that. I was saying that what I've learned, I think it was from Ty Lopez, he said a while ago that, you don't have to, not everything you do has to make money. Like, say you own a condo, you don't have to rent that out for money. You can make money other ways. And that kind of told me that, yeah, you know what? It's not, if you have a day job to pay the bills, great. And then you can do your podcast or your speaking or whatever, and don't stress about, people say, you've got to make money doing what you love. If your podcast isn't making money, don't do it. It's like, I don't agree with that. I think you can make money in different ways. Whatever you got to do to make money or to live as well as you can, then do that, and also do the rest of the stuff. You don't have to monetize everything. It can be fun to do a podcast or your TikTok videos.
So there's no rules. If you're an independent musician, which I am, and you're an independent podcaster, I own my website and I own my podcast, and I can do anything I want. I don't have to follow somebody else's rules. I can.
That's the thing. You don't have to.
Be as creative as I want.
Yeah, you don't have to be like, oh God, I better do a podcast on something that sponsors will want to sponsor so I can make enough money. Like, none of that. Because I was listening to a podcast interview recently with Josh Peck, who starred in Drake and Josh when he was a kid, like some big Nickelodeon. It was the biggest show maybe in history, or on Nickelodeon or something. But he was saying, like, he only made about $100,000 a year, and that didn't go far in LA, where he was helping his mom pay for her bills and stuff. So even as a top Hollywood star, he still barely made enough money to live, and now is doing YouTubing and podcast. Like, he has to do other things. So even if you were a top podcaster or whatever, like, there's some that make millions of dollars from it, but it's very rare. And even if you're a Hollywood star, a lot of these people are also real estate agents, like actors, or like you find different ways to bring in money, and then you have sort of different spokes to your wheel. Like, you are a public speaker and a voice teacher, and you can bring in little money in different ways. Like, the IRS says that every multimillionaire has at least 7 streams of income, or the average one.
Right.
But it's like your accountant. Anymore. No, and your accountant might be like, yeah, your podcast isn't making money, so I don't care. Hey, like, that's not what the podcast is for. I'm not relying on this, because you do it because you love it. If every podcast made tons of money, everybody would just be doing podcasts because it's fun.
Yeah, I would love to quit my job. I would love to be a full-time musician or a full-time podcaster, but that's a long game.
Yeah, no. So you yeah, exactly. I think Gary Fee says that too. You could do it for 10 years building it up, but I mean, you still got to eat in the meantime. So
my husband has been sick for the last 2 years, and he lost his job. He used all of his FMLA up. So I am the only one that's working. Oh, that's right. You're in Canada. That's something that employers give you time off without pay, without you losing your job.
Okay.
So he used up all of his FMLA, which is 90 days that you can take off, like, bits and pieces of time.
Yeah.
To go to the doctor, or you can't get up in the morning because you're, barfing in the toilet.
Yeah.
You can use those little bits and pieces to take time off without losing your job, but you only get 90 days. And that's what happened, is he used it all up, and now he's not working, and so I'm the only one bringing in income, and so there's a lot of weight on my shoulders.
Yeah.
So I can't quit my day job.
What is your day job?
I work in healthcare, in pharmacy claims, medical
Okay.
claims.
Well, that all ties in together. It's funny that I listen to this podcast called "Don't Keep Your Day Job." It's all about, like, follow your dreams. But I heard her
Do
recently
that.
saying, by the way, and I think she changed the name for a bit to the Kathy Heller Show, but now it's back to "Don't Keep Your Day Job" with Kathy Heller. She probably realized, oh yeah, nobody knows who the heck I am. But she was saying that that was the catchy title she chose, but it didn't mean you have to quit your day job, and like, it was more that you can make. Well, it's the idea of do your passion and maybe make some money from passion or whatever. But people can also keep their jobs. Like, it's. And now I'm like, now you tell me I left my job because of this podcast. Oh man, you should have said keep your day job, whatever. But yeah, everybody's got different things. And that's the thing I learned too. Like, I was working a really cool job in advertising, and I kept telling myself, oh, I better leave because I want to be a comedian or a screenwriter. But now I'm like, I could have done that job and then done my comedy in the evenings, or anything. I could have become a psychology professor and then done some open mics. Like, you don't need to quit everything and say all I do is comedy all day, because unless you're Kevin Hart, you're not making enough money just from that. And even he would have to be hustling all the time. Like, I think it's good to have different prongs, like sources of income, different jobs, different things you got going on, so that you're not relying all on one thing that could fall apart.
But you mentioned something earlier about time management. Well,
Yeah, that's
I
what we were
can't
talking about
do
just before.
this because I can't do this thing because I need to prep for my comedy improv. I've got to make my jokes. I've got, to get, psyched up in my head to do this routine. The same thing with music or podcasting or whatever passion you have. You have to prepare. You have to be practicing your piano or practicing your vocal exercises, or you have to be doing the scripts and inviting guests, as you know, and doing the research, doing the show notes. All those things take time, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, because
so
just
having a full-time job and doing the podcast, that's another job for me.
it
It's
is,
just a
yeah,
lot.
exactly. That's the thing. Time, and that's why the past couple episodes I've been like, thank you audience for your time, and thank you guest for blessing me with an hour of your time, because it's like that's our most valuable resource. And now I realized, yeah, that's kind of everything. Like, it's of course, if we had all the time in the universe, then sure, I mean, you can do anything. But because just before we started recording, I was saying, yeah, I was supposed to be, like, somebody asked me to door knock for a politician today from 1 to 4, and I had to do a Zoom improv class just before this call, and I'm like, so, and I mean, I did it. I enjoyed it. It was fun, but she wanted me to sit in and give her, and I'm like, why? This is her business running these improv classes. Why am I, I have this thing where I feel like, oh yeah, I should help people every time somebody asks me to do something, but I should be more strict with my time. And so I'm not doing the politician door knock, because first of all, I want to be my own politician. Why am I helping other people? And second of all, I've got my stand-up class tomorrow, so I don't have. It's just going to stress me out. Like, I spend 3 hours doing that. Now it becomes 4 hours walking there and back, and now I've got nothing for my class. So I'm like, no. I'm going to be strict with my time. And then when we were talking about this before, I was like, oh, we should record this, because you were starting to say, yeah, it's hard to manage your time. How do you do all your different things? One thing that I keep coming back to is on the James Altucher show, he was saying that everybody's like, well, how did you write a book, James? Like, it takes so much time. He's like, yeah, well, for example, if you don't watch Game of Thrones, now you have another 180 hours of time to write a book. Like, yeah, so we do
Not on
use.
Facebook all freaking day, then
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, every time I open it, now I'm watching reels of a woman with her husband's pictures of her. Why did I? There's people out there in the world that we need the audience. There's people that will spend time watching the reels. But if you're like us and you want to create, you don't have time to watch people's reels about her husband taking pictures of her, and that time just sucks away. So, like, I'm sure if I actually boiled down what time I use during the day, and I've done this before, like a few years ago with a woman I was sort of dating. We sat down twice to make a schedule from 7 to 8. You get up and do your exercise. 8 to 9, you buy your stocks. 9 to 10, you interview somebody for a podcast. 10 to 11, you draw a cartoon. I never did any of that schedule, but it kind of showed me what you could do during the day if you're strict with the time. And I want to start doing the daily podcast so that, this will take an hour to record or whatever it is. But then I have to go add the descriptions to the files and pick a screenshot for the thumbnail and put it on YouTube. And like all
That's
that
the
takes
reality.
maybe another hour or something. So I just have to be strict about the time and do it. But I could do it if I'm not door knocking for someone else. So it's all about. So I guess you were saying, like, do you have any tricks on how do you manage the time and your day job and your other multiple jobs and your ministries and all that?
Yes, I have to have a schedule. There's no way around that.
Mm.
I have to have a very strict schedule since I am dealing with my husband's illness and his dealing with his doctors, and I'm doing everything,
Yeah.
juggling everything. I've got a garden,
Ooh.
and I have, you know, my full-time job, and it's open enrollment season, so for 4 months we were working overtime, 10 hours a day. uh, Tips and tricks for time management. Yeah, I decided to hire a social media manager because
Ooh.
I did not I did not want to spend all this time on social media doing all the posting. I didn't have time for it. I don't enjoy it. I like
Yep.
interacting with people, but I don't like the process of doing the posting and coming up with the right graphics and all that stuff.
No.
So I hired a social media manager, and yeah, they're getting we're getting some people that are interacting with the posts. Um,
How did you find this manager? Are they like in
oh,
a
it was
foreign
just
country?
interviewing a few different people that I could afford. There's some people are like $500 a month, which I can't afford
Yeah.
on my salary. But this other company, Socia Nova, they have like a starter package for 95 a month that, you get three different social media platforms of your choosing, and you give them access to a Google Drive, and you put all the stuff on there, like photos and maybe some podcast episodes or your bio and stuff, and then they go to work and they post for you.
Oh, that's fun. Did you
So
just were you just googling social
yeah,
media managers and you picked a
because
few?
I was like drowning. I'm like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
not getting anywhere. So I decided to do that. I have a huge yard, and since my husband's sick on disability, I can't have him in the front yard mowing the grass, and
Yeah.
because people are watching, even if he's feeling well for the day. No, you can't go out there and fix the sprinklers because if somebody's taking pictures.
Oh,
We'll
for
be
the
in big
insurance kind
trouble.
of thing.
Oh yeah, insurance fraud. They're like, well, if you're on disability, you're not disabled, you're not sick because you're out front with the lawnmower. So I was doing
Yeah.
that all summer last year, and it gets 120 degrees here in the summer, and I'm up at 6 a.m. every weekend out there watering the plants and mowing the grass. And so I decided this year, I'm like, I'm not doing this again. So I hired a landscaper this year to do my yard.
That's good.
And if I have to eat beans and rice, I am glad I spent the money.
Yeah.
So I pay them $80 once a month for them to come in and weed whack and pull weeds, and that takes a lot off of my plate because, like I said, my yard is a quarter acre. It's pretty
Wow.
big. And I do
That's
the
nice.
garden myself, which that's I'm trying to find ways to make that a quicker process. I've got an automatic watering system. Um,
Could you get a garden that's like, what do they call it? Like when it's plants that are native to the area, so you don't even have to water it or whatever. They do their
yeah,
own
like
thing.
I have, like for decoration, I have fire stick, aloe vera, and elephant's food, which are very hard to kill. At least in my yard, I kill everything.
Well,
Um,
I accept the challenge. I will try to kill your fire stick. I will
oh
destroy it.
yeah,
That's my Schwarzenegger
I
voice.
have killed I don't know how many rose bushes, so I gave up rose bushes. But as far as for a vegetable garden, yes, I have to plant exactly what will grow in my area.
Hmm.
Um,
Well,
I
that's
have to
good.
follow the rules, so I had to take a class
Break
on
the
how
rules.
to grow vegetables here in Phoenix because it's very different from growing vegetables on the East Coast or whatever. So that's another thing. But
So it's not rules like there's a law. It's just you mean the
no,
rules
it's
of
the rules.
nature.
If you want this plant to live,
Right.
you'd
You
better
got
do this.
yeah. Yeah. Same thing with me.
Don't just don't just shoot at the hip and just put stuff in the ground because yeah, you're gonna starve because we eat out of our garden now. Thank
That's good.
God.
Well, that's what they say. I mean, that saves money. It's inflation and all
It
that.
does, and
Every
the
time I have an
supply chain,
supply chain
the supply
issues.
chain issues. Yeah, so I got scared when the pandemic started and I started the garden. But
Yeah,
so
that's good. So,
that's one aspect of my life, and then with the music, I was in a few bands with my husband, and we were doing cover stuff, and we were doing originals. My most recent band we were in it was a blues band, Dead Giveaway, and we were in the process of redoing one of my blues songs that I wrote, and it's about abuse.
of course.
And they said, "Oh, we need to take this, take this down a key and maybe slow it down and make it bluesier sounding."
Mm.
And I said, "Oh, this will be great. I've got a blues band. We can redo the song." That's when the pandemic started, and I had no band.
So
So,
who said you should take it down a key? You had a producer or
oh,
something?
he
Or?
was the leader of the band. He's the lead guitarist, and
Yeah.
he's Dennis Rush, and he's very successful and well-known guitarist in the rock world.
Nice.
So I respect his opinion, and so I was all excited. Oh, we're gonna write some new music together, and we're gonna redo my blues song, break these chains. And then all of a sudden, the lockdown happened,
Yep.
and my husband got sick, and so I have nobody to help me create this music. And I've got two pianos already, and I've got a guitar, acoustic guitar, an electric guitar, bass guitar, but I never got past the finger bleeding stages with the guitar, so I
Mm.
stick with the piano.
Yeah.
Started piano in college, and my primary instrument is my voice. I'm a classically trained singer. So anyway, I thought, well, what am I gonna do? I can't create any music because I don't have a band, and it's kind of boring, just me by myself. And so I bought a Roland Juno synthesizer.
Oh wow.
It's 88 keys. So now I've
Is
got I've got
is
three pianos.
it just a piano has 88 keys normally?
Yes,
I know this because
correct.
with my niece, when I was visiting her recently, for some reason we just counted all the keys on the piano, and I remember it was going to be a number that I'm going to remember this, and I remember it was 88 because I'm like, that's an easy number to remember. It's something
Yeah, that's a
cool.
full keyboard. There's
Yeah.
there's others that you can get, 60, 59. You can buy smaller keyboards if you don't want a huge full
I used to
size
have
one.
like, yeah, I used to have these little mini synthesizers. Like my grandparents had one at their apartment and stuff, and but I don't know how to play the piano anyway, so I don't really know how different it was.
So anywho, this Roland Juno is like a band in a box. It's got every instrument on the planet on here, and so I decided, okay, I'm going to be my own band as much as possible.
Yes.
So what I've been doing is trying to learn how to use this thing. It's like it does so
Sure.
many things, and trying to figure it out because I've never used a synthesizer. I just had a traditional digital keyboard,
Mm. Must be fun though
and
to have
it is
control
fun.
of your own thing. To say here, and I don't because I've been learning Canva. Like, how do I draw on here? How do I make a logo for my podcast? I'm like, it's not perfect. I'm not a designer, but I'm like, hey, I can do it
We're
myself. I don't have to
learning new
hire a
things.
designer. Yeah, it's like why not? And then put together your own little album. Like, there's a guy when I was in university. What was his name? He had a cool name. But he kind of just made his own album in his basement with an 8-track or whatever, and he became really big. And it was like, yeah, why not do your own thing? Like
Yeah,
Billie
you
Eilish
can
and her
do that
brothers.
now.
Yeah,
You can go to the store and buy your own recording equipment, and
yeah,
I've got Audacity, which is free to record with.
yeah.
So as far as saving time, it was really hard with the pandemic, with all the stuff that's piled on top of me, to get in here and create some music and learn how to use this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided, okay, I'm going to set aside Sunday. Because once you get in here and you start playing around and you start creating things, oh look, yeah, I got a xylophone, or I can do a timpani
Yeah.
sound. I did a cover for what's that show, The Greatest Showman, and there's a
Oh.
song on there that I covered and recorded, and they have timpanis, big orchestral drums, right? And it's on here on the Juno, and I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna put that in there. I have it here on.
Oh.
I haven't figured out the drum section. I'm trying to wait till my husband gets better so he would come here on his kit and record the drum tracks, because he's a very accomplished drummer.
Yeah.
But I had to set a time for myself to come in here and create, whether it's laying some piano and strings, whether it's working on some lyrics, whether it's, hey, I'm going to collaborate with somebody, which, we've got the Zoom. You can collaborate and talk and songwrite with somebody over Zoom now, and I have met some friends who were willing to do that. Hey, can you listen to this song I'm working on? It's kind of like,
Oh, I love that.
I'm not sure if this chord sounds right or whatever. So I've had to decide, hey, I'm going to come in here on Sunday mornings. My husband sleeps usually till 12 noon, so it's quiet. And
Is
I'm
this
going to record.
is this like a shed in your backyard or something?
Oh
or
no, we have a music studio. That's
in the
where I'm
house?
at. It's a music studio. It's
Yeah.
not a shed, but
But
yeah,
that's
we
cool. That's
knocked a
part of your
few
house.
walls down when we
Yeah.
when we moved in, and
Oh,
so
that's my
yeah, the
dream.
the drum set takes up half of the room, and then um, we've got a place for anybody from the band that came in would stand, and then my section here has my Juno. It has my podcast mic, my computer. All this stuff here is my music and songwriting books.
What are those books
Um,
behind you? Is this the Nightmare? Like, are those all just books
these are
you've
all
got?
my podcast guests behind me.
Oh, so they all wrote the books.
They all wrote the books, and I usually feature their books if they're on the show. So I've
Yeah.
got like up here is my sheet music. Down here is like how to write songs.
I love it. It's so inspiring to be around books. I remember I had a girlfriend who just loved books, and she saw a picture of a chair once that was like bookshelves built into it. She's like, "Oh, that's my dream to sit within the books." And I thought, that's just a waste of space. What do you need books for? You can just look up anything online. And
Well,
she wanted
guess
to mail.
what?
Yeah, no, books are good.
If
Guess what? She's
if
married to
if
somebody
the
else.
internet goes down, guess what? You don't have any
True.
books. You have
No,
nothing.
and there's something comforting about books. Like if I go to the library now, I'm like, oh, it smells like a library, like when I was a kid. And you
I
hold
love
the
the
book and
library.
you read it, like it's grounds you in the world. And yeah, there's
Yeah,
something where
books.
where you're saying like you just need to book off the time, and that's because I
You
was all like,
do.
oh, how do I use Canva? But when I said, okay, I'm going to spend 2 hours figuring this out today, you sit down and you just book out that space, and then you do it, or you say, okay, I'm going to spend an hour working on my guitar or figure out the piano or whatever. And I think that's it, because with our phones and laptops, like it's too easy to get distracted by things. And they were saying like multitasking doesn't exist. You can't do two things at once. So it just means you're
Oh
working on one
yeah.
thing a little bit and then another thing a little bit. It takes you a while to get into the flow, and if something breaks the flow, now it takes you another 10 minutes to get back into it. So just book off the time and use your time efficiently. And what you've done is you're like, it's worth $80 a month for somebody to weed the garden. And now I've got other things I can do, or it's worth what else? Oh, the social media person. Yeah, because even as I was telling you, it takes me an hour to record the podcast. Well, I need that time because nobody, it's me talking. I can't outsource that. But then when I'm like, oh, it'll take me an hour or two to get the file up, that's not the best use of my time. Like I could hire somebody else to do that. And I enjoy it now.
Yeah, virtual
I'll
assistants.
I'll do it. But yeah, like, I mean, I read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss a few years ago before I left my job, and he was all, and this is 10 years ago, so it was all, you know, there's even more you can do now, but he was all like, get a virtual assistant, pay somebody in Vietnam $5 an hour, whatever, to do whatever, reply to your email. Like, there's so much you can outsource that other people are happy to do, and they're good at it, and then you do what's best for you. So it doesn't mean like, oh, I can't waste money. Like, it's an investment. It's not a waste of $80 for somebody to do your garden.
Yeah, if they're doing a good job, you have to underline that. If they're doing a rotten job, like I tried to hire somebody to do the editing of the podcast. I enjoy editing, but it's like, 3 hours of my time to edit an hour podcast, and I'm very picky. And I hired somebody that was affordable. It was $1 a minute, and I kept having to send it back, saying like, okay, there's this guy doing a loogie sound, and nobody wants to hear that. You need to edit that out. Oh. Or I'm stuttering. I don't want people to hear me stuttering and repeating myself. Mm-hmm. And so the second episode that I had sent them, I sent it back, and then they sent it back to me, and they didn't do anything different.
They're still
like, forget it. I'm going to edit myself.
Yeah.
And save, because my podcast is usually 50 to 60 minutes, so that's $60 out of my pocket. I'm like, that isn't worth it if they're not going to do a good job. So that's the caveat.
It's just wasting money and your time, because now you have to go through it all and then wait. Yeah,
I have a deadline. I've got to post the podcast, and then I don't. I've got to stay up all night and edit it the right way, because I want to put out a quality product.
So that myself, I don't care about quality.
You don't care.
That's kind of my stand-up act. Like, if I waited until my comedy was good, I wouldn't be doing this show right now. But if I had to go through and edit this, I mean, I'm already 6 episodes behind uploading, or 5 at least, since December. So I told this story last episode. I thought, like when I was interviewing people at the film festival, I thought, I'm going to do a vlog every day, like Casey Neistat. And I sort of filmed stuff all day, and then I sat down to do a vlog. It took me hours, and then I didn't do anything that day. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to upload this. This is a raw file. Here's our hour interview, and I'll just upload it, and that's good enough for me. And that's just my thing, because I don't. But I mean, some people want to edit, and it would be better. But it depends what you're doing. But for me, I've decided, you know what? It's better just to get it up and move on with my life.
And there are people that do that. They don't care about the ums and the ahs and the, sneezes or whatever. They don't care.
Oh, I love all of that stuff. It's like it's my natural kind of thing. But it depends. Some people don't want the loogies in there.
And I will tell you about time management is, think about the long term. Like, what's really important to you, and what is going to be important 20 years from now when looking back. I haven't mopped my floor in 6 months, okay? And that's kind of bothers me, but it's like I don't have any. My husband sometimes will help me and vacuum the floors. But I've had to leave the dishes in the sink, because it's like, okay, we got paper plates. Yeah. So what? Okay, if we run out of dishes, then we'll wash a dish so we can have dinner. Those kind of things. Pick what's important to you.
Yeah. At the same time, if there's things you can fix that'll make a difference, like I think it was James Altucher talking about, I don't know, it was somebody, it was a business coach he was interviewing, saying, sometimes he'll go into an office and he'll notice that somebody, like at the meeting, is opening a drawer and he has to fiddle with it for a bit, and the guy's like, what is that? So they sit down and they fix it for 2 minutes, and now it's good, and he's like, oh my god, like he realized how much time he's been wasting every time he opens that drawer. So sometimes I'll find something and go, yeah, why don't I just take that thing out to the garbage, or clean up this area that I'm always stepping over things, because then it might long term help you be more efficient.
Oh, yeah.
So it's finding that balance between, you know what, I don't care if my floor is dirty, I'm going to spend my time on other things, or if there's something that's kind of always annoying me, then just get it done, spend the 10 minutes, and then it'll declutter your life. Or even just to say, like, even just the past little while, I've been going through my clothes, going, you know what, I wear the same 3 things every day. Let me make a big bag of this other stuff, so I'm not sorting through it every time. I'm going to donate it. even
Right.
during the pandemic, I was like, where do I take clothes? But now I can probably donate things again. And then, yeah, I'll save time from having to go through this pile of clothes, and I'll feel more decluttered in my life because I'm looking at fewer things. I don't have to think every time I'm looking at my shelf, like, oh, what am I supposed to be doing? No, there's nothing on here, so I know I can just work on my podcast. I don't have to think about what am I doing with this old underwear or whatever. So, yeah, we just need to get Marie Kondo in here, pay her a few $1 million to tell me to throw everything out. I don't know.
This turned
I don't know
into
what the answer
a
is.
time saving podcast. It sounds like
Yeah.
we were all over the
So maybe
place.
So
Um,
that maybe I'll switch the title too, because I always try to think of a title for these. Like it used to be just interview with, singer, but now it's like I call it How To, and then it's like How to Manage Your Time with Diana Winkler, minister or whatever, like a facilitator, and then yeah, like and that'll be like the theme I call it, but then there'll also be other little tips in here. But I like to feel like it's practical. So sometimes I feel like a podcast where like I want to learn how to do something. Tell me how to do something.
sure.
And time management applies to everything, and especially when I see somebody like you with all this multi-hyphenate titles, it's like, yeah, how do you find the time? And so that's always been a big thing for me. How do I spend time on what I care about, my passions? How do I find time to do a podcast? How do I also do my job? And then because I feel stressed, I don't, as much as at the time, if I'm watching a bunch of reels, it's kind of numbing. It's like eating junk food. It's like fine, it's comforting. It takes my mind off things. But afterwards, I feel sick. I'm like, why did I just spend an hour going through Instagram? Why at 9 o'clock
Oh,
when I start
yeah.
looking at reels? Now it's midnight. I'm like, I just lost 3 hours.
Twitter is
That
so toxic. I've had to
oh,
like
Twitter, I
back
don't even.
away from
Yeah,
Twitter because I have other podcasters that are in my genre, and
yeah.
two of them were at war with each other, and they're like fighting and mudslinging on Twitter, and I was like so disappointed, and I'm like, I'm
I
not even going to do that. I'm not going on Twitter right now. I can't deal
I
with that.
never used Twitter, and a couple of months ago I thought maybe I'll try Twitter. So I waited in there a little bit, and I was seeing all these things from therapists. I mean, everybody on Twitter is just complaining like I'm so oppressed, or people being mean to me. Like,
Right.
just stop whining, just do your thing. So and then there was all these therapists saying, oh, like people don't appreciate me, or I'm like. I said, shouldn't, and then there was therapists fighting, and I said, shouldn't therapists be getting like your therapist? And they're like, you don't understand. It must be you're so privileged or whatever. I'm like, even
They
the therapists are
attack
attacking me.
people. I mean, people would say
Yeah,
things that they wouldn't say to your face,
yeah,
but they will
hopefully.
say something on Twitter or Facebook and be a
Very easy to
horrible human
typeset.
being.
Yeah, that's why it just makes me almost everything on the internet makes me sick, and that's why, like, you know what, the joy I will get is from this podcast because nobody's bothering me right now, and I'm not getting messages. I'm just talking to one human being, having a discussion. Although I keep getting these notifications on my phone, I got to turn it off because I flip it over. It's like,
I do have
phone.
a meeting with my music coach at 11:30 in about five
Okay,
minutes.
so I'll let you go. Can you quickly? All right, so we'll sum it up. Just I don't even know what your podcast is, so tell me what that is, and then I'll let you go.
So my podcast is The Wounds of the Faithful, and you can listen to it on any platform out there. On my website is dswministries.org. You can find everything about me on my website, my social media, my mentoring services, Mending the Soul, all of my music that I create, my YouTube
I love it.
channel, my
I love it.
podcast episodes. So, and my
And can I?
podcast is about healing from abuse. So, I invite you to come
Okay, well
on.
that sounds good, and yes, I would like to be healed. And quickly, I like to ask people like because that's what I've realized now. Like I need a website where don't tell people go to your Instagram, your Facebook. Then Mark Zuckerberg owns your life. Like you need your own
Nope, I
website
got
where
my own
people can find
website.
you. And how did you build it? Is it like a platform? Is it a
It's a
WordPress? Is it like some
WordPress, and
company?
I
Yeah.
actually hired a coach to teach me how to do WordPress, how
Ooh,
to create my website, and to maintain it myself because
I love
I
it.
got scammed by some website designer who took my
Yeah.
money and gave me a half finished website, and so I'm like, nope, I need to do this
No.
myself. So, and I'm
Yes.
pretty proud of it. I think it looks great for me doing it myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so I'll check it out. And I love that idea. Like, yeah, learn the skills yourself. Almost anything, any of this technology stuff, they're designing it to be as easy as possible. They're not making WordPress hard deliberately. It's like, you know what? Learn a little bit. You have control over it. You don't have to stress out and pay somebody $50 every time you want to add a headline or something. And that's great. I love how you're taking control. Great. So go do your other thing. And thank you for being on the podcast. And I promise I will get this uploaded today.
Thanks so much for having me on the show. It was fun just to sit and just shoot the breeze and chat about all kinds of stuff.
That is the thing, and that's what I enjoy. And I was saying this to the guy who co-founded The Onion a couple days ago. I'm like, you know what? And he's doing the same thing. He's like, he does his podcast. He does 2 podcasts, just like he did when he was a kid. He just likes it. And I'm like, I used to record myself doing a radio show with my tape deck, just talking to myself. And that's what I want to do. Like, I don't care, really. This isn't about interviewing people with specific questions. I could read a book if I want to learn something, but it's just, I want to have a discussion with someone. Talk for an hour, maybe learn something, maybe just feel less alone in the world. And that's what this is. That's what my community is. We're good people. We're friends with each other. And we're chatting. And hopefully one day I'll come visit your garden and we'll have some tea. And
yes,
you want to see what I'm drinking?
absolutely.
I'm drinking my keto butter coffee with matcha green powder. And it's this green thing. But I'm going to live forever with this thing. So we'll have lots of time to garden. What do they say? They say live like you'll live forever. No, dream like you'll live forever, but live like you die tomorrow. Something like that. Whatever. It's all a bumper sticker. Let's just do our thing. All right. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jeff.